So, the developers of Escape Academy actually used to make escape rooms like real life escape rooms, but then, the last 2 years happened, and having a bunch of people crammed into a small enclosed room probably wasn't the best idea. So, they pivoted and started making video games, and you can really see that escape room lineage in this game. I mean, it's a whole game, a whole world based around escape rooms. But they took their experience from real life escape rooms and used them to craft one of the best puzzle games of the generation. The puzzles are so clever and there's so much variety. There's everything from logic puzzles to ones where you have to manipulate the environment or look at the environment for contextual clues, or there's a lot of ciphers you have to use to crack codes to open locks or doors. There's so many of them and they're all so clever. Like in one puzzle, there was invisible paint, so you had to find a way to see the paint, which revealed a kind of maze, which led to different colors, which you then used to get codes for a lock, but sometimes it led to two colors, so you had to combine the colors. And that's just one puzzle of a much larger level, just one part. There was a Sudoku like puzzle, one where you had to lure out a mouse, one where you had to mix and match different chemicals to figure out which one had what chemical based on the new one you got when combined. There's so many different types and they're all so good. I don't think I can think of a single weak puzzle. They were all really fun. Balancing a game's difficulty. Any game is difficult, but it's especially hard in a puzzle game because everyone's brain works a little differently. Your brain might work well with logic puzzles, but maybe you're not great with the puzzles that require you to look at the environment and find patterns there. So it's nice that they added in both split screen and online co-op, which I didn't get to test, but from what I understand, all the puzzles are still the same. You just have one other person there to bounce ideas off of and work through problems and cover each other's weaknesses and stuff like that. That's the thing with puzzle games. You don't need to design co-op only puzzles. It's nice if you can, but just having another person there to talk through the puzzles with is inherently cooperative and fun. But I did play the whole game solo and it was still a lot of fun like that. I did get stuck now and then, but never for too long. The puzzles felt like they were balanced perfectly. Even solo I didn't take that long to figure out a puzzle, and I never felt frustrated or felt like it wasn't fair. I never said to myself, "Oh, come on, how could I have known that?" The answers were always totally understandable, and when I did eventually figure it out, I always got that feeling of satisfaction, that I'm a genius feeling you want from a puzzle game. Even when I did get stuck, there's a pretty handy hint system that's actually really well balanced. You know how most games will just have the character blurt out the answer to a puzzle, or worse, the hint isn't actually helpful? Well, Escape Academies is both helpful without giving away too much, and subtle. If you're on mouse or keyboard, you just press X. It's just a little button prompt hidden in the corner of the screen. Your character never talks to themselves to remind you that you have a hint. It doesn't like glow or flash if you take too long, it's just there if you need it. And if you do use the hint, it's actually helpful, without giving away the answer entirely. It gives you just enough to point you in the right direction so you still get that feeling like you're big brain and figured it out yourself. It feels like the developers actually trusted the player to figure things out themselves, but know where to give a helping hand when needed. Or maybe they're just confident in their game design. Either way, it works really well. You do get points deducted from your score if you use hints, but not much. Even using hints on some levels, I still got straight A's. They don't punish you because you needed a little help here and there. The point is you got there. Now, if only the education system would take notes. The scenarios are as creative and diverse as the puzzles. Even the ones where you're just attending a class are fun. Like, one is about your art teacher asking you to graffiti the school as part of his class, or another one where you're poisoned by a milkshake. They're all just fun little scenarios to play through. But what I didn't like is that there's a time limit on every level. I can do puzzles fine, but as soon as there's a timer, my brain freaks out and stops thinking. But that is just me. They do give you plenty of time for each level, usually around 20 minutes or more. So even for me, it wasn't too bad. I could still sit back, take a breath, and work my way through the puzzles. But that's the thing. I like being able to take my time to sit and think and work my way through a puzzle, and having a time limit just adds an extra layer of stress and anxiety that doesn't need to be there, at least not always. In some cases, the time limit made sense, like one level has you trapped in the school's basement and you have to solve puzzles to climb up before the rising water drowns you. A time limit makes sense there and does a good job of setting the scene and adding in some drama to the mix, but when the level just has me looking for some spray paint so I can tag a wall, does it really need a time limit? I don't think so. I think I would have liked the time limits more if they're only on some missions. Like, gathering paint could be a nice little puzzle that you can just sit back, chill, and wrap your head around for a bit. Then you could throw in those rising water missions to be more dramatic. It immediately feel different from other missions, it stand out more, almost like a boss fight type thing. Sometimes less is more. Running out of time is really the only way to get a game over, and it's not actually a big deal. If you quote unquote die, You can either continue where you left off and it'll add some more time, but your score goes down a bit, or you could just start the whole level over again. But the thing is, these levels aren't that long. If you know what you're doing, like, yeah, it has a 20-minute time limit, but that's more than enough to beat the level, especially if you know what you're doing, and the puzzles never even change. Even if you die and restart, it'll be the same puzzles with the same answers, and that's fine, I want to be clear about that. The puzzles are really clever, and the developers being able to focus on those small set of puzzles is why they're great. And the alternative is for them to like triple or quadruple the amount of puzzles and swap them out every time you die, and that's just ridiculous, and would lead to far more frustration than anything. This does mean that if you do run out of time, it's almost always better to just restart a level. You can rush through the beginning puzzles you already figured out, even skip whole parts sometimes, and get back to the part where you were stuck on with more time on the clock. So, I don't like the time limits overall. I think they're kind of pointless for a lot of missions and would have been better used if they were sprinkled throughout the game instead. Like, a few levels have time limits here and there to add in some tension and drama and freshen things up when the story requires it. I will say though, and this is sort of related to time limits, there's a mission fairly early on where you have to help someone escape captivity. You're working with another character and guiding them through the prison. And of course, they'll occasionally stop and you have to help them by doing a puzzle, and if you don't do it fast enough, they constantly chime in to remind you, hey, I need that code, hurry up, find that cell. It's so annoying. Please never ever have a character do this in a puzzle game, it just frustrates and annoys people. I need time to think things through, and if I have someone constantly in my ear being like, why haven't you figured it out yet? Go faster, faster, come on, it's just annoying, and because I'm annoyed, I'm not thinking as clearly, so it takes longer to figure things out. So they chime in even more, annoying me even more, and it just snowballs from there. So please, never ever have characters do this. If you want a system to remind players what they need to do, make it a button press. But to be fair, that was only in one mission, so you can just kind of power through it and it's fine, but it's still annoying and you do have to do this mission to continue the story. And the story is fun. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon. Not like Avatar: The Last Airbender or Gravity Falls where you're there for these big overarching plots, but more like SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents. Those kinds of cartoons where you watch every week to see quirky characters go on wacky adventures that's resolved in 20 to 30 minutes, and there's a completely new adventure next week and they never really acknowledge last week's adventure. Each mission in Escape Academy feels like that. You meet a teacher, they give you a test or something where you have to do a bunch of puzzles to impress them, or the clumsy but lovable janitor makes a mistake and you have to escape a room slowly filling with water, or something, and after 20 minutes, everything is resolved and you go on your merry way. And everything in this world revolves around escape rooms, like everything. You're attending a school that specializes in teaching escape rooms. There's evil anti-escape room organizations who are evil because they don't like escape rooms, I guess. And you just have to buy into the idea that everything in this world revolves around escape rooms. Just like how in Yu-Gi-Oh! You have to buy into the idea that everything revolves around a card game. If you can do that, it's kind of fun in a nonsensical kind of way. There is an overarching plot, but the narrative is at its best when it's just doing these more Monster of the Week format type things. The main plot is about you being invited to a maybe secret school. It's never really clear. Like, you take a secret underground train to get there, and they wipe the memories of students who failed the first test, but then there's newspapers talking about the school, and the world building's kind of weird. But you begin attending a school all about escape rooms. It just never builds up the characters or plot that well, though. Like, they try to set up a rivalry between you and one other student, but you'd interact with her maybe, like, I don't know, 4 times before the end of the game, and she's just a very one-dimensional asshole rival type character. Most of the teachers you only interact with a couple times too. Like, there are these optional conversations you can have with NPCs between levels, but they never really amount to that much. None of the characters ever develop beyond that one trope, like the quirky teacher or the cool art teacher or the dim but lovable janitor. They never grow beyond that short description of them. Without getting into spoilers, it did feel like it was trying to say something about the education system and how it teaches kids and what the system's goal is. It just never quite makes the landing. It doesn't give it enough time to elaborate on its message or explore it properly. That's why the narrative is at its best when it's just a Monster of the Week type thing. All the characters are tropey, but they're fun enough to set up wacky situations in a weird world where everything revolves around escape rooms. They just don't work on a grander narrative, but that's okay. The scenarios they put you in are fun, enough that I didn't mind the story and still had fun with the characters. The one thing that did kind of bother me about the game though was the character models. Remember when I said that the developers originally made escape rooms, and how you could really see that in how good the quality of the puzzle design was? Well, you can also see it in the quality of the 3D character models, which look really wonky. none of them stand right. Like their arms aren't quite T-posing, but they're always sticking out a little too much, and they're a little too skinny and just a little too long, kind of like noodly. They look like they're from an early PS2 game, and they kind of dress like they're from the early 2000s. I'm pretty sure I played as the main character in a snowboarding game or something back in 2005. But when you actually talk to them, you're given these really nice 2D images of the character that look much better. I think the art style would have worked better if they just kept the 2D images and had those standing in the environment, kind of like how Danganronpa does it or Paradise Killer. Those games made 3D environments, but the characters were 2D. They kind of had a diorama effect to them, which I think would have fit this game much better, and it allows them to keep and show off their really nice 2D characters. So the game's not perfect, but I loved my time with it. The puzzles were really clever, they're balanced really well, the scenarios and world they throw you in is silly fun, and I just enjoyed my time with it. If you're looking for a good puzzle game you won't find better than Escape Academy.
It's official. You're up there with the greats.